Just a language warning for this episode.
Welcome to the Afterlight Podcast with me, Lauren Grace, a spiritual podcast full of stories and conversations that prove we're never alone. The Afterlight Podcast aims to inspire and educate. Remember, you are the authority on your own life. I encourage you to run everything through your own filter, to take what resonates, and I also urge you to do your own research and consult with qualified professionals for advice on your personal situation. The opinions shared by guests are their own, and any advice by our guests or by me is not a substitute for professional guidance. Thank you so much for listening, and I enjoy journeying back with you to the afterlight. Enjoy the episode.
Lauren Grace here, and welcome to the Afterlight Podcast. And I'm joined today by my sister from another mister, Lindsay Schroeder. She is a professional priestess, a spiritual wellness mentor, and intuitive business coach. Lindsay is called to support those who are awakening and ascending into their divinity and descending into their delicious humanity. She believes in the marriage of the practical and the energetic, the scientific and the esoteric. Her work is here to support you on the pathway from unaware to conscious creator. Your outer world is just a projection of your inner reality. Perception is everything, and Lindsay is here to help you break that down, integrate it, and embody it. Lindsay is also the host of the Professional Priestess Podcast. And just on a side note, I want to remember to talk about embodying, the lessons that we're learning through life. I'm just going to make actually a mental note about that, because it's such a deep process. And I think sometimes we get so caught up, at least for myself, in the head that we forget that unless we're actually embodying it, it just doesn't even really count, does it? Yeah. So Lindsay's been on the show before. We had a powerful episode called Healing, Pricing, and Clarity for Spiritual Practitioners and Business Owners. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Before we kick things off, Linz, I thought I would do a card of the day because I haven't done that quite a while. So I thought you could pick the deck. So I'll give you two choices. We've got the Queen of the Moon Oracle deck, which is gorgeous. And we've also got Wisdom of the Oracle. Yeah, I know.
Me and the moon. Me and Mommy Moon are really close. Very, very close.
All right, cool. Let's do that. So go ahead and just shuffle this. And we'll see what spirit, and wherever you are in space and time, this card is for you. Always run everything through your own filter. Cool. All right. Ooh, beautiful. And the card today is self-love, which I feel is a perfect way to set things up for us here. It's just so gorgeous. This is card number 6. Now, I don't know about you, Lindsay, but 6 for me, number 6 is all about family, love, but it's also around coming around and seeing things clearly. It's about intuition and really connecting with that inner self. When we've got the self-love card, this is a lot about reflection. It's about that embodiment. It's about really coming into ourselves and going, what are the things that are mattering to me right now? How do I feel about a certain situation? Energy checks with ourselves, instead of going through the motions, it's sort of taking an inventory and a stock about where we are in the present moment. When we see self-love, this woman is also holding herself. She's like giving herself that nurturing. One of the things we often, I think, forget to do is to go back and give ourselves the nurturing that we desire. When we're looking outside of ourselves all the time for that confirmation or that validation or the love, then we're forgetting that everything outside of us can be taken away. So it's really about taking that time to take inventory on what our connection is with our own heart and taking that moment to self-reflect. So this is actually a perfect card to start things off with us today, would you say?
Yes. Oh my God. And it being card number 6, for me, when I hear 6, in addition to just like the numerology aspect of 6, I see 3, 6, and 9 as this sacred divine triangle. And so many of my teachings and the teachings that I've been taught and the ones that I choose to disseminate, they really fall into this triangle: unaware, conscious observer, conscious creator, empathy, sympathy, compassion, like so many different 3-pronged teachings Father, Son, Holy Spirit. The way I like to do that sometimes is Father, Mother, Holy Spirit, or,
Ah,
the Great Mother, the Daughter, and Holy Spirit. But so many 3, 6, 9 connections. And so for me, six is that in between. So when I'm getting a self-love card that's landing in a six number, it's not the unaware. It's not going, oh my God, we really need to like revamp everything as it pertains to your self-love. We really need to like wake you up. And it's not going all the way to conscious creator of asking me to take more inspired action and to move and to do and to create. It's asking me to observe. And so as soon as you told me it was self-love and it's in that moon deck, that is so many of my
yeah.
own personal practices. Honestly, my moon child tarot deck is within hand's reach right now from me. And so this
Ooh,
conscious observer state around self-love is asking me to take a moment while you're reading, while you're reflecting back to me, and really experience this as the mirror and go, okay, in what way have you been loving yourself? In what way has it been this nervous system regulation? Because I teach this move all the time and actually like squeezing and cupping and tapping and like do a lot of bilateral stimulation with my nervous system regulation. And so I saw so much in there that is like, okay, let's really take a moment and celebrate how your self-love has truly popped off recently and this next level that you've gotten to in disseminating these self-love teachings. And so much of my priestess offerings, my containers, are rooted in not only self-love, not only self-awareness, not only self-reflection, but self-mastery and self-connection. And this sacred remembrance is the like through line, is the North Star to not only my work, but my brand and my business and my very like soul's blueprint being is helping you to remember all of that inside yourself. And so it does really come back to a self-love, a self-connection, a self-correct perception game. That's what everything comes back to. Because, like you're saying, it is just you, yourself, and I. Yes, we need our relationships. And yes, our exterior is the reflection and is the shadow of what's going on inside of us. But it all truly comes back to the self. So I love that
yeah.
not only was this in a moon deck, not only was this self love, but that six was there because it gives me the specifics of self love for me and for this moment right now.
Wow, that's so beautiful. I would like you to like drop your microphone now, except for not really, just figuratively. Don't actually drop your microphone. Can we go back to what you were talking about before? Because for our listener at home, you won't be able to see this, but I'll put a clip of it on Instagram. You were using your hands, you were crossing your arms, similar
Mhm.
to that image that we saw there
Yes.
in the card. Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that nervous
Yes.
system and that balancing?
So a lot of times when I'm doing nervous system regulation, I'm telling people like hold yourself, holding your arms, squeezing your arms, and specifically crossing the arms so that your right hand is on your left shoulder, your left hand is on your right shoulder, and you're actually able to squeeze back and forth, which stimulates the two sides of the brain and brings the brain into coherence. I also love to grab around the face and around the neck, really giving the vagus nerve, giving those lymph nodes a lot of love and care. And this, very similar to a weighted blanket, helps to calm the nervous system just from squeezing and being with. I then move it into this back of the hand, delicate movement, and move into the sensual self love touch after you've started to regulate. I also do quite a bit of tapping on the vagus nerve. And a lot of times we can either cross and push underneath the collarbones. You can have one on each side and get your Tarzan and Jane going on down the vagus nerve, but all of those pieces kind of up here where a lot of us spiritual individuals and practitioners, we are up from the throat, the third eye, and upwards. And so helping
Yes.
to calm and soothe and disperse that energy and get back into the body. I do a lot of like triage work up here, and then I will bring it down the body nice and slow, bringing it down to the root, holding the womb, holding the solar plexus, maybe massaging the heart, moving down the body, moving down the extremities, tapping on the thighs, getting into the body, preparing us for that embodiment phase that you were
Mm.
talking about earlier. Because I know everybody loves to ascend up and out. We love to do the shiny, sparkly up here. But like you were saying, without embodiment, that's just a beautiful experience. But to actually benefit from that experience, you need to digest, you need to integrate, and you need to embody, which is descending into the humanity further and further and rooting it down into your very being, into the somatics, into the subconscious reprogramming, into the energy body so that you carry it with you and it's not just a memory or a future picturing or an experience that you go up into above you.
Mm. Oh, that's so good. I can really relate a lot to that because I'm somebody who anxiety shows up for me, frequently. I want to watch my words because I don't want to be like, it happens to me a lot. But,
Mhm.
I mean, if I'm just like being real for a second, anxiety is something and I
Yeah.
find that when I even just put my hand on my chest or one hand maybe on my chest and one on my stomach, and I just breathe in and I just tell myself I'm safe and I can relax, it really does help me to get out of my mind and into the body. But I love what you're talking about with the pushing on the chest and the crossing of the
Hmm.
arms, and that I'm going to check that out or like work with that for myself because
Yeah.
like you're talking about, when you are so spiritual and you're up in the head a lot, it's almost like up in La La Land in the fairies. But at the same, although fairies are elemental too, but anyway, that's a whole other thing.
Mhm.
When you're up in the head, it's like you forget that you're supposed to be living a human experience, which means getting into the body and feeling into the body. And I love that you also brought in the sensuality aspect of it because I think that, when I think about priestess work, and, we're going to go into that, on the show today, I think about connecting with that sensuality, with the divine feminine within that beautiful, like within ritual and beauty and everything that encompasses, why we're here, in the form of a woman and how that,
Yeah.
feels for us. And I think we sometimes avoid those feelings or going into our body in that way.
Yeah. I want to offer a correction most of the time, almost all of the time, if not all of the time for so many of us, because we are socialized, we are programmed, and the system itself, and I'll speak for America even more, we are truly programmed with the intention of separating our womanhood from those pieces, from pleasure, from our divinity, from the goddess within us, from our sensuality, from our sexual expression, from our Shakti, from our creative energy, from so many of these things through they're vilified, through they're demonized, through the societal perspectives on it, through the lack of safety when you're embodied, and the
Yeah.
overall hatred, anger, disgust, shame, and separation that you receive as a woman who is embodied. Like, as someone who wields that and is that and drips that, and I am extremely authentic in that, people do not like it. And people are very triggered by it and have very extreme reactions to it. When you are a liberated, expressed, especially feminine individual, it is extremely polarizing. I very rarely get the in between reactions of like, oh, I'm not sure about her. People are like, oh my God, I love her. That was such a phenomenal conversation. Oh my God, she could really see me. Or I just really fucking don't like that girl. Like, I don't know what it is, but I don't like her at all. And like, they don't even need to talk to me. People will have these extreme reactions to me from 10 feet away. And like, my partner has
Wow.
witnessed it in public spaces to the point where they're like, "Do you know that person?" And I'm like, "No." No, but I've already triggered her from 10 feet away.
That's so, the triggering thing is really interesting. And you were talking off the top about, the aspect of like using you maybe, or maybe you were talking about me, or this conversation is mirroring. But,
Mm,
when we are being triggered by something, my experience, it's always about, is there something in that, that I need to look at for myself. And it's very funny because I'm a strong woman and I'll often meet strong women. And sometimes I will be like, that girl is a bitch. And then I'll be like, oh, I'm actually going to be friends with that girl.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Yes.
there's something in that girl that, she just knows who she is. And that's a lot of the company that I keep are women who know who they
Yes.
are. And it's funny because when I meet one, I'm automatically a little bit like, who, what? And then I go, oh,
Mhm.
right, that's how
Yeah.
these relationships start. But yeah,
Yes.
can you comment a bit about the triggering? And I know it's like it's a really
Yeah.
complicated thing because, like you said, all of those things that you were just talking about is that we are dealing with so much layering as women, the way that we were brought up. Shame is like a huge thing. Looking at a
Yes.
woman and being like, who does she think she is strutting like that? I remember people would say to me, oh, I saw
Yes.
you walking downtown strutting. I'm like, okay, well, that's just how I rock. you know I have a
Yeah.
kick in my
Yeah, the,
step.
like, my shoulders are back, my chest is out, my chin is up, I am open, I am confident, I am present, I'm not necessarily rushing through. For me, I have a very large energetic presence, I'm extremely authentic, I have a very loud voice, I have very long hair, and, like, my intuition is on another level, and so if I'm not intentionally pulling my energy in, the majority of people who are in any way, shape, or form tapped in, whether that's conscious or unconscious, they experience me as a gravitational pull. And that can be very uncomfortable if you do not understand what you're experiencing.
Yeah, and you know what I love that you're talking about? You're very confident in that, which is awesome because I think sometimes we shy away from that, where what I'm hearing from you is you're like, I walk into that room and everyone will notice and there will be a shift.
Yes.
And it's like I think owning that energy, and I think there's a way of owning that energy, but also allowing other people to still own their energy. So it's not this like confrontational, I need my energy to be, the only focus in this room. It's also giving people space to do that. But what's really cool is when people are authentic, when they are stepping into their power, they actually provide other people with the light and the permission, even at a subconscious level, to do the same. And I think
Yes.
that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's just which path it takes. I tend to call myself sometimes that knife sharpening stone. And so a lot of people, like you're saying, they're like, "Oh my God, like you take up this space and you're really confident in who you are." And if you have already in any way, shape, or form chosen that for yourself, desired that for yourself, wanted that for yourself, or you're fully immersed in that path, it is like a candle lighting another candle, growing another candle. You're just like, oh my
Mm.
God, this is feeding my own fire. Now, if you ever made the choice, conscious or unconscious, to pull yourself back, to force yourself in a box, to make yourself smaller, if you didn't pursue, say, for instance, what you want to be doing with your life, if you don't allow yourself to look the way that you want to look, and this is another big one for me, if you have forced yourself to not love who you love as a very openly queer, very out there, polyamorous, witch, priestess, all of these things, it is extremely triggering for someone who has forced themselves into a box,
Ah,
either conscious or unconscious. Like if your religion
yeah,
told you, oh, you can't be and do any of those things. Yeah, I was little in Catholic school going like, I am who I am, and had to deal with a lot of negativity and pressure around me for a very long amount of time. And so now I'm in this very relaxed, comfortable place because I'm like, this was such a battle for so long, battling the
mm,
closest people to me, the authority figures around me, the actual system and structure. And not that I don't have to do that anymore, but as a sovereign adult, I get to curate at least the majority of my intimate circle and my home and my where I'm educated at and my mentors. And so there is like this relaxation that I have in it because I had to like really push my own space for so long. And so I
mm,
deeply understand that it's a lot of times sadness and grief and heartache and agony that I'm triggering in someone else because I am such an illuminator. Like I flick all the lights on, and a lot of people have spent a lot of time not being willing to look at those things that are fully illuminated when all the lights go on. And it's much easier to go, it's her fault that I'm having to see these things than like, oh,
yeah.
wow, I shoved that down so long ago.
Whoa, so many things to talk about
Yeah.
in that. I'm covered in goosebumps. I mean, one of the things that so many things are coming up for me in what you just said. I'm trying to think about the direction to go in. So, first of all, one of the things that I just think is so interesting is the transition that you've just talked about going through, like feeling in a way that maybe you weren't in that position, whatever time in your life to like be who you are now. How do you
Yes.
take those small steps to start showing up like that? Because when you are triggering people who have buried and put these things, these feelings of shame or stories or whatever it is that they're dealing with, and we're living in such a cool time now where people really
Yeah.
are, I think, expressing who they are and feeling supported by a larger community to be able to be who they are, which is just like so, refreshing and fantastic. So we get all these different perspectives of life, which I love. How do you get started in that? Like, do you have to go and do healing work? Do you have to work through those stories? Do you have to identify them and maybe even brush up against someone like yourself and be like, who is she? And then kind of go, oh, wait, maybe I need to put the finger back at myself and wonder what it is you're triggering in me?
Yes and no for everything that you just said, because it is such an individual experience and an individual
Yeah.
pathway. And there's also so many pathways that I won't sit here and say, yes, you have to do that. But everything that you just listed is a pathway that I've seen someone take to get from where they are anywhere on that triangle of like, I'm fucking unaware. And then I have an experience or I meet someone else or I watch my friend do this or I finally
Yeah.
hit that limit at work and I'm like I can't do this anymore. And you go from unaware to like, okay, now I'm observing. Oh shit, I'm seeing myself live out this pattern of saying yes when I want to say no, of saying no when I want to say yes, of holding myself smaller, of being jealous of people. And instead of going, ooh, that means I actually want that thing, let me take a step towards that thing. Let me explore that thing. Let me consider myself as that thing, doing that thing, being that thing, having that thing. I'm just going to allow the jealousy to fester all the way to conscious creator of like, wow, I have made my own choices, but my choices have been very informed by maybe what my parents want or what society wants
Yeah.
or what this wants, or even the container of my profession or the fact that I'm a mother, the fact that I'm a wife, the fact that I'm any of these things. So any of those pathways work. It's whether it will work for you in the current time, in your current form. And so finding
Mm.
that minute step in any one of those phases, if you're like, well, maybe I'm unaware because I haven't considered any of those things, can
Yeah.
you just allow yourself to witness what you're thinking? My guess is if you're in that phase, you probably don't have a meditation or prayer practice that you regularly work with. And I would consider starting with an awareness of, can I sit for 30 seconds, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and just become aware of the thoughts that come up, not the thoughts that you're thinking, because there's a very big difference between a thought that you think and a thought that you become aware of. We've all
Mm.
felt those thoughts that you just become aware of. You're like, oh my God. Or like the intrusive thoughts that you get that are negative, that are scary. And you're like, I didn't make that happen. Like, I didn't tape that on the computer keypad. And yet it came up. Or like Inside Out when we see the like triple dent gum commercial coming up. That's not a thought I'm thinking. That's just a thought I became aware of. So, can you become aware of what you're thinking and consider, maybe, why am I feeling that way? Why am I responding that way to someone I don't even know? Or maybe I'm responding that way to someone I love and respect and care about, and yet I want this thing from them and I kind of want to take it from them, or I want them to not have it anymore so I don't have to deal with that. Any
Mm.
little step that you can take in any three of those phases around that, okay, what's going on inside me because I am reacting or responding to the external, and shifting that perspective from the external informing you to the internal informing the external with a little bit of a lag.
That's so good. And the word that came to me was curiosity. It's allowing
Yes.
ourselves to go, hey, instead of maybe look at things in what if I got curious about who I am and who I want to be, and all of these things. And I think it almost can add a bit of that lightness to it too, right? Because sometimes when you think about sitting with yourself, you're like, I don't want to sit with myself for 10 seconds. I
Mhm.
remember years ago there was a time when I did not want to go hang up the laundry because I could not quiet my mind, and I did not want to go and
Mm,
go there. And so for some people,
yeah.
and I can really connect to that, when you aren't aware that you're able to, have those thoughts happen instead of embodying all the emotion or the story that goes with it, or being okay with like these thoughts coming up and then watching as they go away. If you can bring in, I think, a bit of that
Mhm.
curiosity, it adds a bit of that like lightness to it, I think.
Yeah. And to anybody who's like, yes, that's me. And like, I don't want to do insert your version of going to hang up the laundry because that's overwhelming to be with yourself in that way. I want to
Mm.
stretch your awareness in this way. You can get to a point where being with yourself and hearing even those negative, those limiting, finding or a limiting belief, catching a pattern becomes this like exciting thing because it's the pathway, because it's the lesson. Every time one of those things comes up, or I become more aware, or I feel like I'm in the pit, I feel like I'm in, the current moment's rock bottom for that specific thing, there's a little bit of giddiness now in the way that I practice because I'm like, oh, the thing I've been asking for, the thing I've been praying for, the thing I've been manifesting is showing me that like this is the pathway there. So now all I have to do is face that and get curious and get excited and like play in that and do that work and catch that rhythm and find that flow. And that is actually the way to the thing I want. It's always the answer, it's always the solution, it's always the pathway. And yet that shift from like when you're feeling that, when that is your present moment, being down in there, not wanting to follow your thoughts, it is very hard to make that just a little bit shift to like, ooh, this could be
Yeah.
exciting. Ooh, this could be cool. Ooh, this could be fun with just a little bit of curiosity. But sometimes hearing it and the fact that I'm displaying the vibration of it to really help you go, oh, it feels like this. And 1 degree shift feels so different. It becomes possible. And as soon as it's possible in the brain, it's possible in the body, it's possible in the energy, it's possible in your exterior reality.
Oh, that's so good. So today we're talking about priestesses. And I'd love to know, first of all, what really attracted you to, do you identify as a priestess? Is it more of an archetype kind of concept? What first introduced you to that? Because I think that when we start talking about the priestess stuff, it's so cool because I got so many thoughts about it actually. Before I even go there, I'm going to hear from you first. So, yes, how did it all start?
Well, the priestess path chose me. I
Okay.
chose spiritual wellness mentor. I chose intuitive business coach. I chose mindset. I chose energy healer. I chose all of these different facets and learned so many of these things. But the priestess path chose me. I am personally a devotee of plant medicine, and mycelium itself, the foundation underneath the mushrooms, spoke to me, connected to me, and was like, we desire you to be a priestess of this path in addition to the other ways that you priestess. So I priestess through medicine in addition to priestessing the self love, self medicine path, meaning that I work with individuals who are willing to sit with themselves and understand and learn and remember that they are the medicine, that they are the answer, that they are the solution, that they have the goddess within them. And a lot of times, what we've just been talking about being very triggering for certain people is this like, oh my God, witnessing it in me of how I am my own medicine, sharing with them how I sit with myself, how I've developed my own practices, how I hold my own container, how I work with my own self as the medicine allows them to go, oh, wow, yes. So often I have been looking for an authority outside of myself, all of my work is turning that right back around and going, you have all of that authority inside yourself. Yes, I can teach you methodologies. Yes, I can teach you templates. Yes, I can teach you overviews. Yes, I can teach you how to hold ceremony, how to be safe, how to be sovereign, how to clear, how to cleanse, how to release, how to all these things. But the answer, the solution, the pathway, those big questions of like, what is my soul's path? Who are my guides? What am I here to do? What's my North Star? Am I meant to have a business? How do I make money? Who should I be with? Am I a parent? All of those big things, they're all inside you. And my work is not to give you the answer, but to show you how the answer is presenting itself in you and help connect your own intuition of like, it might come through in my clairgustance, it might come through in clairvoyance, it might be an inner knowing. I might hear the whisper from your guide or one of my guides might tell me, but that's how it comes through for me. And I will share that. But then I'm also going to share with you where it's lighting up for you and help you find it in your own self so that after we're done with our priestess work, with our private container, that you still have all of that. I am doing the opposite of building these codependent coaching relationships where if you're not paying someone, you're not able to be in that magic. Nope, my like entire doctrine, my entire purpose here is about in this safe container being the chrysalis so that you can unbecome into the goo and recognize I didn't give you those wings, baby. Those wings are yours. You are the caterpillar. You've unbecome. And yes, I might be the safe container that allows you to transition faster, easier, more gracefully, more financially successfully, getting there in the pathway that you desire. But like, those are your wings. I can't flap them for you. I can't really teach you how to fly. Just like a midwife is like, I'm here. And yes, I am helping with this birth, but like, you are giving birth. That to me is the blend of my many priestess titles or archetypes or what it means to both self-identify and be identified as the priestess.
Mm. I love the line, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And
Yes.
I know that for myself, I've never, ever, ever wanted to create any offering or any service where somebody is dependent on me for the answers because I believe that they know their own truth within themselves. And like you're saying, that when you know the tools and how to listen to your own intuition, that's why I always say, like, run things through your own filter because,
Yes.
I might say one little small word and it means this whole other thing for you than it meant for somebody
Yes.
else. And it's important that we know how to discern that truth for ourselves. So, one
Yes.
of the things that I wanted to bring up, and I'd love to hear you jam on it, is, so when I think about, the priestess, for me, I have this like sort of this interpretation of a very regal woman, confident in herself, standing strong, like we were talking about, shoulders back, walks into a room. I always like have this kind of regal connection to the
Yes.
priestess because there's like this hierarchy of knowledge, of wisdom, of grace, a lot of the words that you were using before. And that's really how I identify with the priestess energy. I remember many years ago, I was taught that, if you wanted to balance the feminine and the masculine, and I think that when you're an entrepreneur and you're a woman in business as well, we sometimes forget that we need to bring in some of the feminine and the masculine, because in business too, there's so much of that masculine energy. And I know that I've sometimes had a bit of a dance with how to bring in the two. And anyway, I remember many years ago, probably even going back like 20 years to be fair, somebody said to me, look at the people around you. And is there anybody that you feel embodies a masculine and a feminine energy and how they're showing up in the world? And can you, in a way, start to emulate some of that? And I think the idea there was that when we can emulate and see somebody like that as a role model, as a mentor, we can start to go, okay, well, what are the actions that I can take to feel and embody that in for myself? So when I'm thinking and reflecting on the priestess energy, I love that as almost like a focal point of going, okay, so if I were going to embody in this priestess energy, how would that look like today? Like, would I wear the shirt that I'm wearing? Would I put on some rouge à lèvres? What would I say to people? How is it that I would stand when I'm in a new environment? And I love the idea of bringing in these conscious connections to these archetypes or to these inspirational figures and then going, how can that help me to be more of who I am?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thoughts on that?
Allowing each of us has these different archetypes within us. So embodying the priestess or the goddess or the empress or the queen is not just for those of us who hold this as a professional title or hold this as a business interest or hold this as our own devotion, but like these aspects, like you're saying, there are places of our lives and physical places where you want to step into that version of self, and regardless of whether or not like this is your chosen path, like bringing the priestess and allowing the priestess to wake up within you can
Yeah.
just be bringing the feminine face of God into the body, into the mind, into the energy. And one thing that I will say about the balance between the feminine and the masculine, especially as a business owner, I was
Mhm.
very masculine in my business when I first started it, as many of us are, where we're like, okay, I can do it. I've always pushed, I've always hustled, I've always made it happen. A lot of us that get into entrepreneurship come from corporate or a structure where we thrived because of that, and we transfer those skills, and we tend to just like rebuild corporate and then have to realize like, oh, do I really want to like exist in the cage that I left that is now like a cage of
Rigidity.
my own making? Yes. And that is like
Yeah.
truly one of my soulmate clients where like you've built something successful and you're like, but this is just another cage. And so the priestess and my business owner are two different individuals. And so my divine masculine in my business is things that I build. So the masculine is really the structures, the systems, the container, so that then my priestess, my witch, my energy healer, my quantum navigator, we fill the containers. So, like,
Mhm.
my masculine creates the containers. My masculine is the one doing the many chat and doing the funnel and doing the this and doing the that, building the structure in the container, telling me, like, okay, it's going to be 3 calls a month for this amount of time. We're going to do this and this and this. Now you fill it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, here's all my ideas and blah, blah, blah. And then the masculine will go through and like comb through it again. And that for me is my balance. Now, some other business owners, some soulpreneurs that I have worked with, mentored, coach, their balance can look completely different. I had a Gemini client who would literally have the conversations as the masculine, as the feminine, back and forth, and have her own little business meeting with her own self. And I would go into my state and get up into our like guides and guardian, and I would listen to their conversations and then like almost mediate the masculine and feminine and show them how to match up on the vibration to get there faster, easier, and more efficiently. So each of us finding that very like Libra season, the balance is not 50-50 for the majority of us. The balance is that like feather on one side and a massive weight on the other. And yeah, they just sit there because of
Oh,
what it means to be balanced as an individual. Those of us ascending, those of us descending, those of us on what I like to call the spiral path, where you're consistently going up into the divinity and then descending down into the humanity. Balance is not what we learned in like our 6th grade science class with the little Grammy grams on there. It looks very different for each of us.
yeah, yeah. And it's different phases as well. Like you were talking about,
Yes.
sometimes the masculine are building those containers and funnels. That's like 95% before, the priestess or that creativity energy can even come in and fill them. I had like this beautiful vision while you were talking, when you were talking about building the containers. I saw like this square vision, and then you said, and then I bring in my priestess energy. And I saw like this boom of smoke
Mm.
spiraling. It was all colorful, almost like rainbow. And then it was like sparkle golden dust, just filling this
Yeah.
beautiful container. Yeah. And it was just
Yeah,
making
you're
me
seeing
think
the
about,
temple.
oh, it was so
Yeah.
good. I'm like getting covered in goosebumps. It was so cool because what it was, reminding me, and I really connected to the funnel and the like the container, the
Mhm.
masculine container, because I love all that automation and stuff like that. But then
Yes.
you're going, but once that's built up, then we go, okay, now let's bring in that beauty and that creativity. And I love too reiterating that balance isn't 50-50, and your balance and
Yeah.
my balance are not going to be the same. So one thing that I want to ask you a bit about is like the priestess work. So how do you
Mhm.
embody that? Is it through ceremony? Is it ritual? And would you say that if you had to kind of I guess kind of summarize priestess energy, like, is it divine? Is it sensual? Is it creativity? Does it change for everybody?
Yes. Yes to
Yeah.
all of those. So the majority of my priestess work is offered in a 3 month or more container. So 3, 6, 9, 12 months. And it will include ceremony. It will include ritual. It will always include active processing, which is like what we're doing, the talking, the education, the showing, the explaining. And then it will always include active practicing. So there will always be this application of integration and digestion in any of my priestess offerings from a single 90-minute session all the way up to my like year long or multiple year containers, apprentice work, student work, but to actually experience yourself in an altered state with your own self, where you are altering the state for yourself. Yes, I am creating the container and holding the safety of the container. And oftentimes, especially for practitioners or high level intuitive individuals, teaching you how to hold the container. How do you move to the edges of the safe container that I've created so that you can really witness what does it mean to be in a safe container? And then I'm bilocating my energy and getting in the container while holding the container so that I can guide you through that container and explore and experience with you. I actually got to do this in my membership for the first time in a group setting where I create the container, we all go in, I bilocate and get in as the leader, and then we all start to explore and experience and share together in this collective altered state that we've created in this priestess container. Before that moment, I had only done that in private work for an
Mm.
individual or in ceremonial work. That was the very first time with my membership with people that I've been working with for several of them for multiple years over Zoom, being able to do this with multiple people and multiple people saying what they're feeling and experiencing, and then all of us moving to that and more of us experiencing, and then going somewhere else and really
Cool.
exploring that quantum state together.
And were you using plant medicine with that, or was that just getting into like a
Just
meditative
us.
state? Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
just
so cool. And I also just want to say for our listener at home, when I'm, hearing you talking about containers and like holding, I hear a lot of you kind of basically saying that you're holding space for people.
mm-hmm.
And one of the
Yes.
things that I think is very cool is, and sometimes it happens on these calls when when I'm having a conversation with somebody because we're very present. I'm not thinking about
Mm-hmm.
what I'm eating later or what I'm doing. We can really hold a space, hold a container for each other. And I think that's where a lot of inspiration and those aha moments come out of as well. And so I just wanted to kind of reiterate that, because if people aren't familiar with the concept of holding a container, I just want to kind of say, like, it's basically
Yeah.
that you are there for them and you're holding almost like a mirror where they can bounce off ideas from you because you're truly present in that space. Would you say that's fair to say?
Yeah, I'll add a few things to holding space specific to my priestess work and
Yeah.
several of the other high level priestesses that I've worked with that can be very different from an energy healer, from a meditation teacher, from other individuals who also hold space. So, very similar to things like somatics or manifestation, so many of us use that same language and yet mean very different things under a oftentimes unified umbrella. So, me mentioning bilocating, the way that I hold space is to actually create a physical container. So, when we study this in like quantum physics, we know that there are physical things beyond just matter, beyond just what us as humans understand, the proton, the neutron, the electron. That empty space is where the magic happens, is where the quantum is where the priestess work really is. And so a lot of my high level practitioner clients can actually like move to the edge and find the difference in density. And that's a lot of what we work with to show what it means to hold a safe container, meaning that nothing that's not for your benefit, nothing like that can get in. And we can
Mm,
contain the things that you are letting out so that they don't run amok or disappear or come back in a different way. It actually holds, creates a container as if you're creating a room, as if you're creating a little plastic container so that we can keep out what we're intending to keep out and keep in what we're intending to keep in. Now, a lot of people can do this in the mention of safety, of like, oh, I can hold a container, lead a meditation and make sure that nothing gets in there, or make sure that other people's stuff isn't affecting other people's stuff. Now, for a priestess, we bilocate. So not only am I holding that container, that safety, managing what's outside, managing what might be coming out of you and making sure that it can't move, but then I myself, another full version of myself, get into that container with you and lead in the container. Meaning, a lot of times I can see a version of what you're seeing. I can hear a version of what you're hearing. I can experience a version of what you're experiencing. And a lot of times we hear about this in plant medicine work, where the guide, the leader, the shaman, the priestess, the navigator, the holder of space is in there with you and can help you to navigate through sound, through clearing, through this or through that, through energy work. That is what the priestess does for me. I am doing that outside of medicine ceremonies for individuals just with their own selves, so that
Mm,
this can be a quantum type of healing, a healing through space and time, these massive shifts and major click ins, but then also these very minute little details that allow us, like we were talking about, to really integrate and embody and digest so that it's not just the 45 minutes or 90 minutes or 3 months of like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is my higher self. This is who I want to be. And then we close the laptop and you go back to your life and you're like, but I'm still flicking people off when they cut me off in public, and I'm still snapping at my kid, and I'm still with my part. And like, I'm not benefiting from it. My work is very focused on the tangible results in your human life on planet Earth in human form, not just the experience, but to
mm,
actually change your human life and be able to navigate consciously, go, oh, I don't want to do, be, feel, experience in that way. I want to go 1 degree this way. And to know how to do that mind, body, energy, soul's expression.
so beautiful. I want to tell you a couple of the visuals that I got while you were talking.
Yes,
So
please.
one of the things that I drew it, but it was like a square, and then inside it was like a diamond. And so I had this
Mm,
vision of almost like, because when we're talking about the containers and you're talking about not allowing things in, so when we know that things are energy and energy is moving all of the time, I
yes.
love the idea of reminding our listener and me to bring in those safety containers so that you do have the freedom to and the vulnerability to really
Yeah.
open up to what's there. Because I think that if we have those kind of safeguards on, in the back of our mind, it doesn't allow us to have that full expression of like really opening up to
Yes.
inspiration and seeing what's there. So I loved that vision I got of like almost going in the square, but then the square is like a perimeter, and then you get into the
Mhm.
diamond shape, and then the diamond
Yes.
is where like you do the work, and then the square is almost like that additional boundary. The other
Yes.
visual that I got while you were talking was you like bilocating into like a diamond or working with whoever in the container that they're using, and then my god, like the second container anyway, inside something, and then I
Mhm.
saw like almost like shadows around like an energy, and then it was almost like a wand comes in and kind of cleans it all up and like beautifies things. And I was reminded of this
Yes.
beautiful meditation that I did in a book called Keepers of the Light Codes, which is an incredible book.
Mhm.
And there's this practice that you do where you sit with yourself and you go into a meditative state, and then you go into your heart. And sorry, I want to do that
Mhm.
for some reason. And you go into
Yeah.
your heart with almost like a wand, and you go into the cave of your heart, and you're like, what needs to be healed, or and you kind of like clean it all up and like add healing and like, and yeah, it was just really neat. And I got
Yeah.
those visuals while you were talking.
Mm. That's so beautiful and so deeply
Mm.
connected to so many like true practices that I use like step by step exact. Like a lot of times the container, because I am often working in a physical like square or rectangle room, and then I am putting a Merkaba inside that space. So
That's what
from
I,
underneath or from one
yeah,
direction, I see the completely understand the like diamond perspective. Also the
yeah.
like magic wand of like cleaning and clearing. I oftentimes offer this practice that I have on Insight Timer to clients who are empaths or highly sensitive people that really shows them how to light up what is theirs and what is not theirs through a step-by-step practice and then actually like magic wand it, pick those different pieces out and get rid of them so that you are left with your own power, your own sovereignty, your own energy, your own gift, and then work in that space. And that's a
Mm.
meditation I've had on Insight Timer for like maybe 5 years at this point.
Oh, well, I'll link to that. If you could send me the link to that, I'll put
Yeah.
it in. I love Insight Timer. I don't go on there nearly often enough. Is there a ritual or a little technique or tip that you can offer somebody to sort of start to, dip their toe into this, to really start to connect with their sensuality, their creativity? And while you're thinking of that, I also feel that we should talk a little bit about, the fear around witch work and
Yeah.
because I think that some of us have, fears around, stepping into that world, a lot of guilt or shame or, just like even survival instincts that come in when we're talking about that. So if you wouldn't mind
Yeah.
just considering that at the same time. Mm.
Yeah. So because you mentioned the cave inside the heart, I want to offer a like little focus in that. So either depending on which level you're at and which one you connect to, or literally which one is like me, pick me, because one of them will. You can consider going into the room or the cave or the deeper space within the heart, within the third eye, or within the womb, the yoni, the shakti, the sacral. So I want you to close your eyes for just a quick moment and just consider which of those three. And then you can come back to this practice. But right now, when you're exposed to it for the first time, just connecting, do I want to go into the deeper sanctum, the inner holy space of my third eye? Do I want to go into that cavern inside the heart? Do I want to go into that deep inner sanctum, that holy space inside the sacral, inside the womb, inside the yoni? Picking one of those. And then, depending on if you want to go into the practice with us right now or if you'd like to hear the practice first, we're just going to explain and understand. But I really love the idea of this exposure moment, you making your choice of which one of these. So you mentioned a little bit about going into the cave inside the heart. So I'm
Mm.
going to ask that you would set your space. A lot of times I recommend a grounding to Mother Earth, opening up our protection or being in white or gold light, and then selecting where you're going to go and starting with the physicality. So this might be your awareness, a little pinprick of light. You might shrink yourself down and go to this space. And this can be in the heart space, going to the forehead, or maybe going beneath the belly button and coming to the physical part of the body and then entering into this cavern. For me and my third eye, it's an I Dream of Genie bottle that I go into, and I get into this
Ooh.
tiny little space that opens up and then is like all of these beautiful pillows and is a whole room and world in there. And then the inner sanctum of my yoni oftentimes presents herself as, if you've ever seen the red, orange, peach rocks like in Sedona, those caverns that you can walk through that are really famously pictured that have the like sun and shadow play and that, but are these really beautiful, like pretty much pink and red caverns. That's the inner sanctum of my yoni. And so I'm going to ask
Mm.
that you enter that space intentionally by calming yourself, bringing yourself vibrationally or your focal point to that, and just exploring in that space and exploring with at first your five human senses. So, witnessing, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you taste? What do you feel? And then allowing yourself to consider what additional beyond your human senses of okay, am I seeing anything beyond my physical eyes? Am I getting messages or pictures? Are there little flickers of snippets from a movie or a show or a place I've been or a feeling? Same thing with your hearing, with your smelling, with your taste, with your knowing, with your sensation, and just being in witness, just being in receptivity of this inner sanctum and allowing yourself, mind, body, and energy to speak to you from the space of your third eye, from the space of the heart, from the space of the womb. And just starting there. For some of us, it might be like a minute or two. For others, it might be 5 or 10. For some of us, we can go deep into this just taking in like the first time I went into the I Dream of Jeannie bottle, I was like, there's so much on the walls. There's so many things. There's so many tiny little spots that have all these little tools and all these little. I was overwhelmed. And so I just sat cross legged on one of the meditation cushions in there and was just trying to like take it in. Like the first time a kid goes to IMAX and they're like, whoa, and they like can't handle it, but like in the best way, or the first time
Wow.
to like FAO Schwartz, this like little kid toy store, and you're like, I don't even know where to run. There's so much. I don't even know what to pull down off the shelves or what to play with. I just had to like sit and take it in. And yet the opposite experience in my sacral space, where I was like, I'm not seeing anything, I'm not hearing anything, it was almost completely void. And she was like, I just want you to feel me and be present
Oh,
with me and go inside, and like it almost wiped out all my senses, and my heart was completely different than both of those. My heart was this like plasmoid experience of like I lost my breath, I lost my awareness, I lost anything but this like plasmoid current of just pure love, light, light, love, back and forth between the two. This like infinity loop that almost turned into the spinning Merkaba and was just like truly dissipating into light, love, and love, light, and were completely different experiences for all three of them.
wow. Just
Yeah,
wow. Like
yeah,
so good and so powerful and such a like I just feel that that is a game changer ritual for
yeah.
someone to, like you said, identify one out of the three and then take that
Hmm.
time, put on some beats or, whatever you need to do to come back to your breath. And like you said, go in and play and see what shows up for you.
Yeah,
That is just so incredibly powerful. Thank you so much. One thing I do want to mention too for our listener at home, in case they're a spiritual woman in business or spiritual person in business, one thing I think you've done really well today, Lindsay, and I just want to highlight it, is that you've given value, you've showed your authority, you've talked about your offerings, and you've done it in a really casual and really fluid, fantastic way. And I think that sometimes as spiritual people in business, we don't really know how to marry all of those concepts together. And it's really
yes.
important that when you have a platform, like you're on someone else's show or a podcast, that you bring it back to your initial intention, which really needs to be about giving that value, showing up as the authority, but then also letting people the next steps that they can take. And I just want to just say that I think that you did that in a really professional, really awesome way. Yeah, because I just think people
Well,
can
thank
learn
you
from
so
that. It's a
much.
skill.
That feels so good. I received that fully because it is, especially those of us in spiritual offerings, we have been told, I guarantee you've heard, you shouldn't charge for your services. Oh,
Yeah.
it's spiritual. You should just give that away. Oh, and for me, like, I got so much feedback, not great feedback about the pricing that I had. And I know our other
Mm,
episode really spoke to that. And so, like, the
yeah.
way those two things weave of doing the work to be embodied and to not let that exterior in there. And for me, really getting to this point of like being resourced is extremely spiritual. And that is the way that we change the world, change the planet, support the collective. And so it is so important to find that like sweet spot for yourself of like, how do I
Yes.
sell in a way that isn't salesy, that is making offers to people who are absolutely dying to say yes. And one of my favorite
Yes.
things that really shifted that for me is find that for yourself. find somebody who sells something that when you found it, when you find out about that, and if you want, I'll give you my specific example that you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I can't wait to buy that. Like, I can't wait to spend my hard-earned money on that. And sometimes it's something that you didn't even know was an offering. And that for me was
Mm.
really important because not many people are Googling, like, I'm looking for an interdimensional priestess who can hold me in a self-love medicine ceremony that is the taking of my own self as medicine. ChatGPT,
Yeah.
find her for me. Like, most people aren't Googling looking for me, and they have to, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, stumble upon it, find it. And it has to be that like perfect saying it in the right way that goes, wow, that is my desire. Wow, I have tried all of those things. Wow, those things didn't work. Yes, it's her in that way, in that type of container. Now I'm so excited to take the next step. I found something I didn't
Yeah.
even know I was looking for, but I've been looking for it in all of these other things.
Yeah, it's so good. And I think that that's why the podcast platform is so strong, because when people can get to know somebody, then they can, start to see themselves in that. And there's like an excitement there that will come. And, even in the ritual example that you gave, for some people, they might know how to get into that right away and take that lead. And other people may need a little bit of guidance into how you even start to see that
Yeah.
stuff or even get in there. So yeah, it's so cool. I just think it was like a really professional example of like what to do. So well done.
Yeah, I
All
appreciate that.
right. We are at the end of our time together. I mean, you and I could talk for hours, so I know you'll be back on
Yes,
the show again because there's just so much for us to, explore together. If you're willing to come back, I think we'll just do like our check-in every couple times a
yes.
year. It'd be really
I
awesome.
love that.
So, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to bring up? We did talk about Insight Timer, so we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. How can people get a hold of you if they'd like to know how to take the next step or anything else that you wanted to throw down before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I definitely want to offer a little bit on what I feel like you touched on when we started talking about the witch
Yeah.
wound. And so this like fear around being a witch, being identified by that label, the public perspective of that, the fact that most of us grew up thinking witch is one of the evil queens in a Disney movie who's trying to kill the happy, sweet, lovable princess. And so I would love to just offer a simple reframe of what a witch is. A witch follows the religion that has no name, that is nature based, that is alchemy, that is that in between the proton, neutron, and electron, that truly is the connection to the elements that create each and every one of us, the cycles that affect each and every one of us, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planet, the earth, the air, the fire, the water, the ether, the plasmoid. And so taking a moment to just let go of anything that is Pixar or Disney or caricature or green face with warts on the nose and consider that for the majority of witches, I won't speak for everyone because obviously in every sect there are those of us who use it beautifully and those of us who don't, and we can identify this in any grouping of anybody, anywhere, ever. But for the majority, witches are those who identify with the things that can't be bought and sold in the same way that religion can be packaged and bought and sold and
Mm.
manipulated. When you have a direct connection to the materials around you, to the earthly mother, to the father sky, to the sun, to the moon, to the pieces and parts of you, I find that that is the through thread of most of us who define themselves or identify in some way or pull themselves back from this like which word out here in the dictionary to, oh, I follow the religion that has no name, that has always
Mm.
been, is, and will always be.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. And I love that because it's just such a personal thing to
Yeah.
ourselves. Yeah. Going
Yes.
back to what we were talking about off the top, when you know who you are, you can pull all of those little skills, tools, anything in your toolbox that you've, learned along the way. And that's when you can create your own magic, which I think is just so,
Mhm.
yeah, profound. Well, thank you
Yes.
so much for being on the show, Lindsay. I will put a link to your stuff in the show notes. It's always
Yeah.
a pleasure to talk to you. And I know our listener at home feels the same. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi.
Thanks so much for listening to the episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave us a review where you listen to your podcasts and share it with your friends. Thank you. New episodes every Thursday.